Thanks for starting that, Roger.
Yeah. These wonderful backgrounds you guys have, man. You're muted, Kelly.
You gotta go on more vacations, I guess, Roger.
Yeah, that makes me think of Mesquite, Nevada. That might be my next quest. There's quite a few golf courses there, gentlemen.
Nothing like golf courses in the desert.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Lisa and Lisa. Yeah, hi there.
Is there another Lisa? Oh, hey, there is.
Yeah.
Greetings, everyone.
Hey, Kevin.
Well, I'm going to get the PowerPoint pulled up here. Can you see that in presentation mode now?
No, it's in
Okay,
PowerPoint mode.
Hit the wrong one again, I guess. How's that?
There you go.
All right, looks like the entries of other individuals attending has sort of calmed down here, so let's get started. I want to welcome everybody to the January 2026 Oregon Energy Code Stakeholder Panel meeting. It is the greatest Oregon Energy Stakeholder Panel meeting ever, just so you know. Thank you all for your contributions to date, and welcome to those who are attending for the first time. Please save your questions for the Q&A periods, or if you have something that needs immediate attention, use the chat feature and publicly send the chat message to everyone. We're recording this session to later post on the ODO website for your review. We want to encourage input from all audience members during this meeting to hear all points of view. So we'll be talking today about an update on the 2026 Oregon Residential Specialty Code be talking about content and timing. We'll also give an update on the 2026 REACH code and an update on the Oregon Commercial Code, and then also some miscellaneous topics as well. So kicking us off, as usual, we'll have Mark and Kelly from Building Codes Division help us with the next slide. Take it away, Mark or Kelly.
Oops. There you go. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. I think a lot of you may know we divided the RMSB meeting into two, just because the amount of material that we needed to cover. So the first meeting was January 7th, and that passed, and they looked at everything in the 2026 ORSC except Chapter 11. So we've got this Chapter 11 specific meeting on February 18th. I believe it's at 9:30. And that is, you can be here or remote. Then from there, that will go to the whatever they decide to do. Will go to the mechanical board on March 4th. And subsequently the SEEB, as we call it, on March 10th. And then there'll be a public rulemaking process after that, sometime in the summer, with our anticipated effective date of October 1st of this year. And then we always have a 3 to 6 months. We've been going with 6 months recently, so we'll have a 6-month phase-in period where you could use either the 2023 or 2026. Then April 1st of 2027. Yes, really, April 1st will be the is our mandatory date for this code. All right, let's do the next one, Raj. And so, a lot of you are aware that we really had 3 big ideas this cycle. We went over these in August too, but just to refresh your memory, the heating and cooling is, when cooling is provided, and this is for new buildings only. So if you choose to provide cooling for your new building, a first stage heat pump will be provided. And then so with the, after it reaches a certain temperature, it's whatever main fuel serving the house becomes the heating. So could be gas, could be electric, could be propane, nuclear fusion, whatever it is. The second big thing that we did was went back to 2 additional measures. We had 2 in the past. We went back to 1 for a little while because we incorporated it into the actual code, and we're moving back to 2 additional measures. So all homes have to do 2 measures, with the exception of smaller homes. We were going to exempt smaller homes from doing that second additional measure. The small homes would still have to do the heat pump, but they don't have to do that second additional measure. And BCD analyzed this, and we chose 1350, but there are some proposals on the table, and the code committee discussed this at length and ended up with 1,500 square feet. So that's what's moving forward, the 1,500 to the RMSB on the 18th. And that also matches what Washington is doing. And so those remain the 3 big ideas. Roger, want to move on? I think this is one is our, and the impact. Those 3 big ideas gave us a 27% code-to-code improvement over 2026 over 2023. And then our energy cost is saving about 171 a year or 14 a month for a low incremental cost of around 2,500. And then, of course, you're all wondering, well, if moved that far, how does it relate to the executive order target, which, as you recall, the target is 60% savings over the 2005, and that's for both commercial and residential. So we've got some internal reporting showing we're around 59%, and our third-party University of Oregon Energy EBSL, Energy Building Science Laboratory, something like that. It's got us around 63. So we're somewhere in there. The annual energy cost savings, $1,500, so almost 124 months from the home that was built in 2005, 6, 7, $124 savings a month. This next code. And so that'll lead us into the next slide, which is the reach code, I believe. Yeah, and so once we have this, the 2026 ORSC in place, we can begin, and we know what's in it, we can start developing our reach code, or you might refer to as the stretch code. So our anticipated schedule with this is to kick it off after the previous work is done on April 1st. And then if they choose to kick it off, then we've got a code proposal period, very similar to the proposal period with the regular code. And then at some point, there'll be a one-day rulemaking advisory committee to review, our proposed code, all the proposals that come in. And then from there will be another RMSB to take a look at what the RAC comes up with. And then similarly, the reach code goes to the STEB. Doesn't need to go to mechanical board. Then we'll have a rulemaking hearing, and then we're trying to time it so that they're both anticipated effective date is the April 1st. And so this reach code, if you give us to the take us to the next slide, Raj. The previous one was all incentive based, right? So Energy Star, DRH, things like that. But I think as a lot of us know, the federal and state programs are changing, and so we don't we're not 100% sure what's out there, but we do know that our code improved significantly this time. So a reach code is usually going 10, 15, maybe more, above the next one. But we took this 27% jump. So what is a reach code going to look like? A reach code is going to move even further. So the next slide, we have some ideas. One of them is the DEQ's got a low embodied carbon housing program. There was just the other month there was a presentation on this, and they have 730 rebates available at $20,000 per unit. And you can see some of their sizes there. I've linked that, so if you open the presentation on the website, on Odo's website, you can link right to that and read all about that program. We want to know, we'd like to hear back from you guys if there's an interest in a carbon appendix. We could mirror a couple of our neighboring states, the ICC, come up with something entirely different, and of course, other ideas. So that's what I think the next slide is going to lead us into another topic. So does it, Roger?
It does.
Yeah. So why don't we pause there right now? Because then we're going to jump into commercial energy code. So why don't we pause there and ask everybody what your other ideas are for the next reach code? Oh, I see. Mark's
quick question.
I can't see hands, but Mark's got his hand up.
Sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Quick question. You mentioned that basically, how do you top was it 26 or 27% of
Yes.
the base code? Was it 27?
27. Yeah.
Okay, just didn't catch that.
Ish.
Yeah. Tall order.
And so going from that, really what we're trying to do is start the conversation or start the thought process today. We're really, the last cycle we did have in there, they were giving some incentives for going passive house, but really looking at what could be done to have an open, use this work group for the purpose it's been set up for, is to have some conversations and get the sort of firing the starter's gun for people to start thinking about what to bring back for open discussion of potential ideas of what could be in the next reach code, things that are ideas of whether or not there's still anything left, say, even if it's just energy trust territory, although we would prefer be tied to something that can give incentives statewide, but what sort of ideas that are out there that could be discussed, spend some time on, because as you can see from the timeline, we've got a bit of time, but to try and put maybe coming back with some sort of a skeleton frame and then see if we can put some pieces onto that in this group that could go forward as an idea for the 2026 residential reach code. So that's really what we're hoping to just the message we want to get out there today and make sure that people, any ideas out there, any things that people might be interested in discussing today, but really at the next meeting, definitely spend some time. Public ideas, something that can, what could be brought back for future discussion.
Hey, this is Ann Geyer, Sustainability Policy Analyst at BCD, on the team with Mark and Kelly. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, I wanted to address Tim's question in the chat. What is a carbon appendix? What we're saying here is, we're continuing to collaborate with state agencies and other partners. We want to plan to offer an optional carbon informative appendix in the REACH code that complements other state and national carbon and green codes. And what that could look like as having measurable material and whole building level prescriptive and performance-based pathways for reducing embodied carbon in construction. And then making that consistent enough for creating an enforcement mechanism for consideration in Oregon. So that's the optional and informative part of it. And then the implementation would lead to, enforcement.
That was a good explanation, Ann.
Thanks.
I even understood that. That's
Great.
good.
And it looks like Vin has a question too.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Ann and Kelly and Mark. I think low embodied carbon is a great idea. I'd want to be careful as representing the city of Portland that we aren't preempted from having our own carbon regulations in the future. I know this is just for the REACH code, so probably no danger in that there. But if there were to move to the residential code, just expressing that concern. And I just thinking about ideas here for a minute for the REACH code, I just want some clarity on the REACH code. I think has served like future energy improvements that could, for instance, meet the executive order 2004. But did I understand correctly that the current code cycle currently proposed, the BCD proposal that's going to the RMSB, that actually will get to the executive order 2004? So maybe the REACH code no longer needs to serve that specific purpose. Is that correct? That it gets us there early?
Well, it's getting us very close. Yeah, like you saw, 59 to 63. We're somewhere in that range. So we're not calling it a day at this point, but we're close. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the question I would have, and maybe this is deferring to you all and others, is so there's probably some type of limit in there in terms of energy efficiency of how far we can go, but can the REACH code explore, even greater efficiencies for energy, or in addition to low embodied carbon? Like, is there any reason to not continue to follow the IUCC or go beyond the executive order? Because thinking about embodied carbon, there are greenhouse gas goals for the state as well. Moving, towards those greenhouse goals might involve electrification or other ideas that the REACH code could serve.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything's on the table with the REACH code. I mean, it's technically an optional code that a jurisdiction can adopt. So I would say it's open to everything. It doesn't mean that we're gonna stop. So.
Yeah, thanks. I was interested. Passive House seems like a nice stretch.
Yeah, Passive House is in this one now, 2023 or ORRC, but it could certainly continue. David Heslin, was that David? Yeah, David.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. And thanks for explanation and everything, Ann and Mark. And are we popcorning ideas for the reach code right now? Is that what? Because I was going to throw something out, or is that later?
No, now it's great. Yeah.
You can
Mark?
start whenever. This is sort of where we fired the gun to get things, but really today is to sort of get that. All right, let's not wait. Let's get the ball moving now. Having more than
Both,
happy to hear
yeah.
anything today or later.
I'm getting old enough. My short-term memory loss is great. So I'll just throw something out there before I forget, not write it down. But I mean, I would think looking at hourly analysis of savings, would be a good thing for the reach code to explore. You have, NIA's business plan is now calling for that from within a savings approach. The new Northwest Power Planning Council is also saying like that matters. Because a kilowatt hour at 7 a.m. last week is worth a different amount than a kilowatt hour, at 1 p.m. that day or at some other time, right? And now might be the time that we start to explore what that could mean, and look at that in the reach code. So I would think about that.
And that does go across many areas and a lot of things that are not only within the current codes where we're looking at, we have appliance standards that are looking at requiring water heaters that can take part in demand management, and 90.1 is now making that, which is our baseline code, is now making that part of their base method, looking at demand as well as, just base energy as well. So we expect that to keep going. And, of course, the base residential code now requires the thermostat that can take part in programs when they're available. So yes, we're keeping an eye on that because we know there's a lot of cross-pollination in this and always looking for more, but how that would get broken out is, how that window wants to be looked at, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just it could be a point of a way to measure things, but also another way to just like examine what infrastructure gets put in as they get built that enables the participation in those. But there might be other considerations that until we dig into it, we don't fully understand. But thanks for the opportunity to put that out there.
Yeah, and I see Jim's got his hand raised, but also John put a whole bunch of stuff in the chat, which I'm recording everything. So, yeah, John, I'll come back to you to ask you to expand on those a little bit. It'll take Jim. Jim, what do you got today?
Yeah, hi guys. Jim Edelson here. Now retired, but I would like to second that idea that David was expounding on, and semi-retired, you can call me. I'll see you in Ashray this week, Mark. I think they're both the opportunity and really the policy need to really plow the ground on how to make the new construction most serviceable for the expanding needs of the grid. I mean, everyone may be reading the series in the Oregonian over the past 2 weeks, a large part due to the data centers, but there is an increasing need in order to lower the cost of this build out, that new construction really take a hard look at both demand response, which we've been talking about, but also batteries and behind the meter batteries. And I think there's a lot of modeling going on. There are third parties that could possibly be tapped to go after this. But I really think that would be probably the most important ground for, and solar, behind the meter solar, how to tap the DER, the distributed resources, in a reach code to really meet these new policy objectives. And I will also add that the Oregon Energy Strategy has this specifically in a recommendation that we commented on and was included in the final recommendations, that demand response be included in future codes. So yeah, I think that's a really important one for the next reach code. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for adding to that. So I got 3 on that. I've got 3 people on that one, and then John kind of mentions it a little bit too. John, do you want to expand on your ideas that you put in the chat, or
I can. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think the battery of the things that I mentioned is the most important, especially if we have planned power system shutdown events. Are the areas are expanding, if we're having more events, and if you have a solar system on that house, for instance, you still don't have power during that event. But if you have a battery, then depending how it's sized, you can. And we'll see. I think we'll see more and more of that as the summers get hotter. And we were lucky last year. We didn't have any events, at least in our part of the state in PG's area that we called. So, but that was an outlier year versus the prior years. Something really important. And then I mentioned the basics. So the big thing, Energy Trust is on a pretty strong tear with their program management contractor clear results to see how we can tie incentives to proper equipment sizing, load calcs, duct sizing, that sort of thing. But we can use all the help we can get from every angle if there's a formalized process to include that. Ultimately, what we want to do is have a brand new home that has the least smallest energy footprint possible, and then all these other more advanced technologies that we talked about, such as solar, battery. You can have systems that are smaller to meet those, or have similar size systems provide much longer periods of resiliency. And then all the things we talked about help with grid stability, and then also we can shift when power is used through smart devices, and that seems to be our biggest challenge, to be candid, moving forward as a utility, is that it's not necessarily over the course of the month how much energy a home is used. It's really when it's using it that's important.
Great, thanks for that. There's another John W. who's got some thoughts.
Hey, this is John Boczynski. I work with Tim Lynch at the Office of Sustainability in Multnomah County. Thanks for hosting the meeting today. One of the things that we're looking at doing is expanding the commercial property assessed clean energy program legislation to include embodied carbon as one of the eligible measures. So this is really, I just wanted to sort of voice that the embodied carbon proposals here are really helpful because it gives us an objective standard. The program already covers battery energy, batteries, EV charging, solar, building envelope, building systems upgrades through a financing program. But adding in an embodied carbon, we think, is going to be an important dynamic to include going into the future. So, and then also just raising the issue here in chat, or just voicing it, just so raise awareness about the program. And I'll put a link into it here in a second. So if folks are interested, you can take a deeper dive.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, it looks like, well, Vin, do you have another comment?
Yeah, I put it into some questions just to clarify the process that's coming up, because I thought the RMSB was making a decision for whatever went into public rulemaking, but it sounds like there's a mechanical board meeting and a CIEB meeting, and just wondering, like, where is BCD's authority, like, after the RMSB decision making, and how do the other boards interact with that?
Yeah, well, the mechanical board, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They're mostly going to look at the mechanical provisions and then the SEEB, but they really don't have any like veto power or anything like that. And then once it comes to us, it's like we say that takes two to tango. So we basically agree. And since I've been here, there hasn't been any We have the opportunity, the final say to say maybe line item veto something at the end, but it's never happened. Did I capture that right?
For the most part, yes. That just to clarify, part of our work is that we consult. So the RMSB has exclusive authority over anything in the residential construction code. We do consult with mechanical to let them know, okay, for alignment purposes, that if there's a change to any of the ventilation pieces or something mechanical or plumbing, well, not plumbing, but mechanical, that the commercial mechanical board will know what's happened on the residential side. Potentially, something happened at national level or locally where they discovered that, oh, this works a little better. We want to do this change so that the commercial board knows what's happening. And sometimes it's helped inform one side or the other. The same thing happens when the mechanical board makes a change in the mechanical code. They bring it back and say, well, here's what we did. Do you want to consider that? So more from a consistency of application statewide, whether it's a single family home or an apartment or a commercial structure. And the same with the commercial energy board. It's taking it in front of them and showing them what's happened to keep them informed of what's happened at the residential level. These are more informative, not a chance for them that they do not get a chance to change the code. The RMSB, when they make their decision, that's it moving forward. The other boards can express concern that it may be a problem for them or that they liked it or learned that they want to do something that the residential board did in their code later. Does that help?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
John.
Yes, thank you. Vin's question kind of had, I'm new to this space, so sorry if I'm asking sort of like rudimentary questions. But hearing Mark, you talk about all those different boards, I got pretty confused. It seems like there's a lot of boards, and just having some familiarity with other state agencies. Usually, the advisory board structure is pretty simple. For example, I'm a commissioner on the Oregon Climate Action Commission, and I know people who are on the Environmental Quality Commission. It's not like the EQC has the water regulation board, and then the domestic water regulation board, and then the commercial water regulation board, and then the air quality board, and then and on and on and on. It's just like one, I think that's 5-member committee that oversees the agency processes. So I'm just wondering why PCD is so special in terms of having so many different boards, and if you can just kind of maybe enumerate, list out, or point me to a website where all the different boards are slated out.
Okay, to point out, you could go to Oregon Statute Chapter 455. So that is where the quote statewide building code is set up, but there are separate boards that go. All of the building codes are known as the statewide building code when they're put together, which includes a residential code, an electrical code, a plumbing code, a mechanical code, a commercial structural code, an elevator code. There are specialty subboards that are set out within ORS 455, within the statute. Sort of, here are the boards that are responsible for each specialty code. So there's a residential specialty code. There's a commercial mechanical specialty code that deals primarily with buildings constructed to the commercial structural code. So each of them have their responsibilities. They have their specialists on them, and they have their responsibility for reviewing and adopting codes. And some of the boards actually have responsibility over certain licensing, whether it's plumbing and electrical or two legacy boards that predate 1974 when this all was put together, that they're all responsible for their subcodes. So so very different codes, very different specialties, very different stakeholders that are involved. So each one of these specialty codes has their own individual board. And
so to paraphrase Shakespeare, it's the fault is not in our agencies, it's in the code here.
It's in statute.
It's in the statute,
it was set by statute, and it's worked quite well for over 50 years. So and it gets people involved who are in many different specialty areas that are involved, including the boiler code, which is very detailed and specific safety code. So we have a boiler and pressure vessel code. To get one group that would know all of it would be very hard to develop.
And I posted the board page in the chat there for you, John, and then you can link that, and that'll have a summary of all the boards. And if you click on each one of those, like for example, if you clicked on the structures board, you'll see that there's 2 openings. And then at the very bottom, you'll see the name of all the board members and like architect, fire protection, building trade. So that's where where Mark's talking about, again, that balance and perspective.
Yeah. Lots of detail there to digest.
David.
Oh, just one follow-up question. The one board that's different is SEEB, right, Mark? I'm trying to remember, did that come into existence in 2009? Is that when that started, or was it earlier?
That is correct. It's as a result of Senate Bill 79 and the 455, 500-ish numbers came out of that. So that was developed, and that is the one board that is made up of members of 2 members from each of the usual suspect boards. There are 2 members from residential, 2 from electrical, 2 from plumbing, 2 from mechanical, 2 from commercial structures, as well as 1 representative from Oregon Department of Energy. That was put together because an energy code does reach across multiple codes. So they developed the commercial energy code.
Right. I can't remember how many years back, but the structures board gave SEEB the response, because the responsibility lied with the structures board. The structures board gave SEEB the responsibility to do the energy code for commercial buildings.
Yes. It's sort of it was created to do the work, and since for the full adoption process, the code committees, the structural board, because it is chapter 13 of the structural code, said these experts will essentially, they're the committee and experts who will bring forward commercial energy provisions. Yes.
But that's like the only thing the SEEB does right now. I mean, its responsibility is for the commercial energy code.
Yes, and the commercial reach code, and for any other areas that may be designated within that might be sent their way. But yes, and they had specific goals that were set in 455, 511 about trying, and 525 looking at going toward meeting the Architecture 2030 challenge that was in effect in 2009. So yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, looks like we could begin talking about commercial now, right?
Yes. All right, that's where I'll take over and talking about continuing training materials that are coming out for everyone, which includes a new CommCheck training video. We're hearing there are a couple of new bugs potentially in the program, so we are waiting to see if a few of these get ironed out with the folks at PNNL. They've been, in the past, have been very responsive. We're hoping that continues. Again, if you find issues while you're using CommCheck, please let us know. But we do have a new training video on how to get through CommCheck and how to do some of the pieces specifically for Oregon on a new video available through the commercial page. A few other trainings that are under development on our side. We're keeping our fingers crossed for some pieces that were supposed to be coming through, potentially through US DOE, PNNL, updating some 2011 era IRA materials to help with additional work of how to use 90.1 a little easier. Also, we're continuing to do trainings for Oregon building officials. Kelly, what's the next date for one of these? It's March. So we're keeping
March or
education.
April.
Yeah, March or April, moving out, continuing to do outreach to help the building officials understand it, how to make sure they're familiar with it, can have a good feel about it, such that when they're looking at materials that are submitted, they can we can have some consistency in application statewide. Right now, that's for my part, but I wanted to let Ann tell us about our new BCD embodied carbon and building materials webpage.
Yeah. The webpage is rapidly developing. It'll soon be the hub for various work products and resources. Yeah, are related to embodied carbon and lower carbon building materials. Related, we will be communicating forward an adaptive reuse backgrounder to the Building Code Structures Board next week and to the RMSB in 2 weeks. That'll share regulatory information and describe technical services for the support of adaptive reuse of existing buildings across the state. And I could throw a link in the chat to that backgrounder. And as far as the website goes, yeah, we do have a couple things on there so far, but it is still developing and it will be more full-fledged very soon. That's it on that.
All right, Ann, Mark, we ready to move on to other mentions? Any questions?
I just had that quick. I put an answer for Trevor in the bottom. Trevor asked why the members of the BCSB are not responsible for the energy items, and that's as we were explaining there with David a little bit, that the SEEB is taking care of those. So
And to add that the membership of the Building Code Structures Board is set by statute, but all of the members of the board are nominated by the governor. So it is the governor who puts the membership forward to the legislature for approval. So that just to show how people get on there, it's not the stakeholders themselves setting that, it is people who are put forward by the governor. And then those were then approved by the Senate.
yeah, go ahead, Trevor. You got your hand up. You got a follow-up?
Yeah, my understanding, so I appreciate the commentary that those are nominated positions, but my understanding is that many of those roles are expired in their terms. They've been serving for longer than the term that they've been nominated for and haven't been replaced. So it seems like that structure is not currently working.
To let you know, yes, we try. There are several members. Sometimes it takes several code cycles to get a new person nominated. For many of the boards, it is just a matter of getting someone put forward and getting them through the process, including the names to the legislature in time during a legislative session. But it's just been a part of, in the years I've been here, I've seen some people go 2 or 3 cycles over on all of the boards. It's just a matter of getting those replacements nominated and put forward by the governor's office. It's no intentional method. It just sometimes takes a while for some of the different specialties to get replaced.
And to underline what Mark said, the members that are overturned, shall we say, are still serving at the pleasure of the governor and are doing so as valued volunteers. They are keeping positions filled, otherwise they'd be vacant. They're not, sandbagging or anything.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Right. Do we have let's see. You want to go over the refrigerant change, Mark? Got a couple miscellaneous things to cover on this slide here.
Yes, let's go through the just sort of some of the other miscellaneous as we're wrapping up here. If you're in the mechanical world and dealing with HVAC, the new refrigerants that are required, there are a lot of regulations that are being updated, but currently most of the HVAC equipment should be using under federal regulation, the new low carbon refrigerant, embodied carbon refrigerants. There is a short hold on it because they are allowing potentially, there's a pause in rulemaking that will allow the sale of equipment that is sitting on shelves today with refrigerant in them. That is our understanding. With the division are doing our best to keep up with changes at the model code level to make sure that the new equipment with this low flammability refrigerant can be installed. It's a big change to the world out there to put in, say, new VRF equipment that is using the new low flammability refrigerants to try and make sure that some of the past methodologies can still be done and not have to put in things like ventilated and fire rated shafts just to run refrigerant lines, say 3 floors through a housing project. One good note is that Energy Star program, it appears that is continuing. If you haven't seen the flyers, the Zero Energy Ready Home has a new name, same program as in the past, it just has a new name, which is it's good to see. Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed that program will continue and hopefully will survive at the federal level. Again, the folks at PNNL, US DOE contractor, we've been in conversations with them about continuing production of training materials that they had been online to update. Again, we're hoping that continues. There is one of the federal grants that the state had been part of on other updates to training material, especially for building officials to help them out. The Ecotech grant, it's on a pause now. They were able to continue and do work through the end of 2025. It is now on a pause. We hope that they can continue that work. We're holding out hope for that. Some of the other federal grants, including one for Oregon for training for remote areas in the state, especially helping folks in rural areas be able to do testing. That grant, we feel it looks like that's permanently canceled. We do want to give a shout out to the folks at NIA and Earth Advantage. Thank you very much for being part of that. We're really sorry that didn't go through. Really appreciated that work. And then again, we're down to the last bullet point and ask about, please, if you'd like to see items on the agenda, we would like to talk about directions for a reach code, residential reach code, but anything else, feel free to send either Roger at Odo or Kelly or myself or Ann, ideas that you would like to have for discussion. This is about required under DO for us to have outreach and feedback from you. And we appreciate what we've had today and we hope for more. And I see a hand up. Trevor?
Yeah, I wanted to react to the comment about the most recent OEESC code adoption and in regards to ComCheck in particular, which this most recent code cycle has been very disruptive for all of the architecture firms that I've spoken to in terms of providing the additional requirements needed to document the thermal bridging requirements. But what we're finding is that even when we're going through all this additional work, it's not actually changing what we're required to do. We're passing easily without making changes to the actual details. So it seems like unless the plan is to ratchet up those requirements in subsequent versions of the OESC in order to make it more difficult to pass with non-compliant thermal bridges. It's just creating an unfunded mandate that's a financial burden on architectural firms and our consultants without actually pushing forward improved performance. I'm curious if there's been any documentation to show that this is actually resulting in more energy efficient buildings, or from what I'm hearing, it's similar in other firms.
Well, this is the sort of information that would be important to get to the C, bringing that forward, yes. And also, as a member of the 90.1 committee, I can say that there was a great attempt to work on methods to reduce thermal bridging based upon some very worst case buildings. And it did create what is apparently a lot of additional burden to be able to cover this. It went through a national ANSI process. It was part of the code that we adopted. But if there are items that need to be done Oregon specific, that is the point of the SEEP. So that is a place to go to look for what things could be done in Oregon to make the code work better.
Thanks. And I will say too, we're very much in support of tracking the thermal bridging. I think it's a fantastic thing to be paying attention to. It's just the implementation and documentation and whether it's actually pushing the change that we're looking for.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback
Forrest.
on the energy code ComTech discussion, we have had similar issues with the effort required for the documentation and have uncovered significant bugs. As you're aware, Mark, we've had a lot of back and forth, and I really appreciate how responsive you are when we identify those. One question or maybe recommendation I have is to have some kind of I don't know, ongoing like issues log that's publicly available so we can see where other people have identified issues that are going on with the current ComCheck and solutions that have been identified in an official manner that can be used as common implementations. I know there are a couple things that have already kind of come out of it, but just an ongoing register of that, particularly with PNNL's kind of downsizing and the potential for them not be able to pick up and address these things as quickly as possible. So that's my comment.
Thank you. It wouldn't be a bad idea we could go back and look at what has been done, known in the state of Oregon, that we've had reports of directly. But yes, of course, the folks at USDOE, PNNL, they're the ones who get from nationwide reports. So I do not know if they have a register, but we could see about whether or not they have something that they can share. We're hoping that they're still going to be available. I understand that they're not going to be attending the ASHRAE meetings in Las Vegas this coming weekend. So we will see. But we can definitely attempt to put together a known list and maybe have that published. But again, if you're not having success with getting through to the folks at PNNL, sometimes if we follow up, we normally we've had a fairly good response rate, but we would need to know. And happy to help. Happy to help where possible. Thank you.
I appreciate that. One, I guess, add on to that. Previous version of ComCheck, even the ComCheck web, you had access to the model files that were run in the background. And so you could kind of, if you're savvy enough to understand what's going on with those model files, you can troubleshoot some things and provide feedback. Those are no longer accessible with the new ComCheck. And I've gotten mixed responses back from PNNL about providing those, the latest being that they'll no longer provide it because they don't have the staff to do so. But There is some black box issues with the new contract, and it's hard to see everything that's going on with some of those calculations to be able to identify what's working and what isn't. And particularly with the new thermal bridging inputs, we've had just some very odd results. I'll put it at that, that I think need further investigation.
Yeah, I put in the chat in case folks are not aware. We developed the ComCheck training. And the ComCheck training we developed might not go deep enough for what you're talking about, Forrest, but there is a ComCheck training that we developed and put on our webpage there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't actually think I've seen it. Yeah.
But again, when you run into stuff, forward it to us, and we'll try to forward it on. So.
Yep, we'll do.
All right. Any further questions?
Yeah, so just on the bottom bullet, ideas for next meeting. We obviously, I think we're going to do something around April. One of the things we'll definitely, talk about the REACH code and further discuss that. What else would people like to see? Supplementary ComCheck training, or what's out there that you guys are interested in us sharing with you?
Let's invite Forrest in to give us that background on the back end of ComCheck. He might be able to handle that for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I can run through how they did the comparisons previously, but again, I can't see what they're doing anymore. And they've implemented a lot of changes. I mean, it's a rather complex process for doing all of what they're doing. But I think some of it could be simplified, and some of the guidance. I'll review the training. I haven't actually reviewed the latest video that you all have developed. So we'll review then. If I do have any recommendations on certain key items, I will follow up.
Good to hear professionals trying to resolve things with all the changes at PNNL and all. It's good to hear that all of you are professional and working together. Any other final questions, thoughts? With that, I guess not. So I bid you adieu and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody.